good morning, and a happy Reverend Martin Luther King Holy Day. I'd like to share with you just briefly about some background information on how this day came to be. We've been celebrating the birth and the life of Reverend Martin Luther King for 51 years here at the Rainbow Push Coalition. It was Mr. John Conyers, Representative Conyers, that had the idea that the highest honor anyone could achieve in a nation's history is to have a national holiday. 4 days after the Reverend Martin Luther King was assassinated, the legislation went into place for a Reverend Martin Luther King national holiday. It took 15 years from 1968 until 1983, when it was officially signed, until 1986, by which time the federal government implemented the Reverend Martin Luther King national holiday. My father and my mother, Reverend Jesse Jackson and Mrs. Jacqueline Jackson, we took many pilgrimages, if you would, to Washington, D.C., when it was seemingly a hopeless cause and it was dead end. But there was a gentleman who put our soul to the science and the passion, a musician, Mr. Stephen Morris, affectionately known as Stevie Wonder, that said, "Happy birthday to you." The artist contributed to this movement. But we were confused about whether or not we should go to school, go to work, how best to honor the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., because the banks were open. My father had the idea, following up on the work of the Reverend Martin Luther King, to expand economic justice. He started the Rainbow Push Wall Street Project to open up closed doors and to bring diversity and inclusion to the markets. Out of that came the first African American to have a $1 billion lead managing underwriting for AT&T properties, and on and on. But I told my father the markets are open and people don't know if they should come. He says, "Why are the markets open?" I said, "I don't know. That's why the banks are open." The New York Stock Exchange on average does $30 trillion in trading volume, does $170 billion in trading volume annually, daily, and $30 trillion of values of stocks are registered on the exchange. We were at 11 Wall Street with then Chairman Sanford Weill, the nation's largest banker in the world. And we were with Mr. Dick Grosso, the chairman of the New York Stock Exchange. My father, the Reverend Jesse Jackson at 11 Wall Street, asked Chairman Grosso, "Why are the markets opened?" Chairman Grosso said, "Reverend Jackson, I don't know why. We've never thought about it." He says, "We are a private member organization. Let me poll the membership and I will get back to you." 24 hours later, Chairman Dick Grosso, the chairman of the New York Stock Exchange, says, "Reverend Jesse Jackson, it has been voted unanimously. The markets will be closed for the name of the Reverend Martin Luther King holiday." So for one of the descendants of slavery to now be immortalized, where the markets around the world take a moment to pause, I would ask that you take a moment to commemorate the life of the Reverend Martin Luther King. 39 years of age, assassinated, fighting against poverty, fighting against anti-war, wanting voting rights expanded to all, and more humane priorities at home. Dad, I thank you for that work, and I had to share that story. But in that tradition, we are blessed here in the city of Chicago to have a leader who uses the word unapologetically poverty, who is committed to fighting intergenerational poverty. I know some people don't know what poverty looks like anymore, but if you're paying too much for your mortgage and you have predator lenders, you're going into poverty. If you are paying too much in insurance, you're going into poverty. If you're getting stuck with fines and fees in the city of Chicago, you're going into poverty. We've paid the most in camera light fees of any municipality in the nation. We've led the nation in bankruptcy. But this woman, this mayor, this powerful public servant has eliminated those ridiculous fees so that we can stop being the bankrupt capital of the United States. She's attacking the core, the roots of poverty. I've seen the Reverend Martin Luther King Holy Day get turned upside down, inside out. We need all personal salvation, but Reverend Martin Luther King died for social salvation. This is a day where we come together collectively for the big picture. You should be kind to your neighbor every day. You should cut your grass every day. You should pick up garbage in your neighborhood every day. You should be charitable every day. But this is a day that we want to focus on the structures that are creating poverty and eliminating them in the spirit of the Reverend Martin Luther King.